Greetings. 5-minute devotional, Papers on the Lord's Coming. C.H. Mackintosh. We looked at this a few weeks ago, and the whole world is guilty before God. We talked a wee bit about him in that point. We're just going to continue that. Today we're looking at the fact that the whole world stands charged with the deliberate rejection and murder of the Son of God. We have the testimony of no less than 4 inspired witnesses to this fact. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John all bear record that the whole world, the Jew and the Gentile, kings and governors, priests and people of all classes, sects and parties, agreed to crucify the Son of God. All agreed to murder the only perfect man that ever appeared on this earth, the perfect expression of God. God overall blessed forever. We must either pronounce the 4 evangelists to be false witnesses, or admit that the world as a whole, and each part thereof, is stained with the awful crime of crucifying the Lord of glory. This is the true standard by which to measure the world, and by which to measure the condition of every unconverted man, woman, and child in the world. If I want to know what the world is, I have only to reflect that the world is that which stands charged before God with the deliberate murder of his Son. Tremendous fact, a fact which stamps the world in the most solemn manner, and places it before us in characters of appalling blackness. God has a controversy with this world. He has a question to settle with it, an awful question, the mere mention of which should make men's ears to tingle and their hearts to quake. I had a guy at work the other day, nice guy, had lots of chats with him. He believes that God exists, and he's just not ready to do anything about it at this stage. And he was having a bit of stress, and then he blasphemed. He swore using Jesus' name, the swear word. And he apologised to me. And I said, well, actually, no, it's God you want to be talking to, not me. Because that's the one you've got to stand before at the judgment seat. And that's the one you're going to give an account for. And you might want to change the way you address him at that point. Otherwise, it's going to be stage left instead of stage right. And he acknowledged that and laughed uncomfortably. But, it's a serious thing to stand opposed to God in this life, because there are eternal consequences for that. And we tend to put that out of our mind. But it's a fact. And one of these days, you've got to wake up to that fact. And there's going to be no time left to change anything. So this life is very short and very brief. It's over very quick. And I'm nearly 60 now, and I can say it's just gone just blip like that. And you think when you're young that it goes on forever, but it doesn't. And eternity does go on forever. So the decision you make now affects how you spend eternity. Then you better make sure you make the right one, because it is real and it is coming. And there'll come a point when you're going to regret not making the right decision. And I've never regretted making the right decision, even for this life. So, being a Christian for this life has been a blessing to me. And everything that I supposedly gave up, which I gave up willingly, and I don't miss it. And it's not anything that has hindered my enjoyment or peace or joy in this world. But the bonus is that I've got eternity to have no suffering and to have peace and joy. And even if I have suffering in this world, as many Christians go through and have gone through and will go through, that the price of eternity without suffering has got to be comparable to a short spell of suffering now, as compared to a short amount of not suffering now and the alternative. Okay, a righteous God has to avenge the death of his Son. So a righteous judge has to act righteously. It is not merely that the world accepted a vile robber and murdered an innocent man. This in itself would have been a dreadful act. But no, that innocent man was none other than the Son of God, the beloved of the Father's heart. What a thought! The world will have to account to God for the death of his Son, for having nailed him to a cross between thieves. What a reckoning it will be! How red will be the day of vengeance! How awfully crushing the moment in which God will draw the sword of judgment to avenge the death of his Son. How utterly vain the notion that the world is improving. Improving? Though stained with the blood of Jesus. Improving? Though under the judgment of God for that act. Improving? Though having to account to a righteous God for its treatment of the beloved of his soul, sent in love to bless and to save. What blind fatuity, what blind folly! Ah no, reader, improvement there can be none, till the besom of destruction, the broom of destruction, and the sword of judgment have done this terrible work in avenging the murderer, the deliberately planned and determinedly executed murder of the blessed Son of God. We cannot conceive any delusion more false than to imagine that the world can ever be improved while it lies beneath the awful curse of the death of Jesus. The world which preferred Barabbas to Christ can know no improvement. There is naught before it save the overwhelming judgment of God.